News Tribune on December 30th, 2021, posted on the Monroe Township website and sent to those individuals who have requested personal notice. Just for the record, I'd like to let all our board members know that we are on Zoom, YouTube, live stream YouTube. So therefore, pay attention. Thank you. Madam Secretary, roll call, please.
Ms. Damiani?
Here.
Mr. Lupo?
Here.
Mr. Masters?
Here.
Mr. Busman? Ms. Caratori?
Here.
Mr. Tanzi?
Here.
Mr. Jaffe?
Here.
Mr. Maralda? Mr. Verdi? Chairman LaFada?
Here. In the absence of Mr. Busman, Mr. Jaffe, you'll be a full voting member this evening.
Minutes.
Okay, everyone, in your emails, you received the minutes from our regular meeting held on March 29th. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, first application, BA-5200-20, Higmet Siglim.
This work? Yeah. There we go. All right. Mr. Chairman, we did receive a letter from the applicant's attorney requesting that their application be carried to our next available meeting. They also extended the board's time to act until June 30th, 2022. It's my understanding that they're revising their site plan to address requirements from the county planning board. They have asked for their notices to be carried, but certainly the board has the discretion to require renoticing for any subsequent meeting if they so choose.
Thank you, Council. I have no problem extending you to the next meeting. However, we are going to require renoticing. Is there counsel here, or?
I do not believe council is here.
Okay, so put on the record that they are required to renotice, because if we don't see them on the next meeting, then, you know, it's going to go too long, and the public needs to be made aware.
You got it.
Do I need to put that to a vote? Okay, good. Okay, next application, BA 5211-21, Thomas Riley.
That application is ready, Mr. Chairman.
Come forward.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Peter and Laura. Nice to see everyone. Walter Toto on behalf of the applicant, Thomas Riley. I did provide an affidavit of service and publication to Mr. Vignolo and Ms. Zaleski.
And Mr. Chairman, I did review the affidavits provided by Mr. Toto, and everything is in order. The board does have jurisdiction.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vignolo. Mr. Chairman and members of the board, tonight we're seeking, well, this is an undersized lot application. The property in question is Block 19, Lot 19, not Lot 10.19. It's on Daygrove Road, 226 Daygrove Road. What we're seeking tonight is bulk variance relief. We're actually pulling one of our bulk variance requests off the table, that being the side yard setback bulk variance request. So we're asking for relief for lot area, lot width, and lot frontage to permit the construction of an otherwise conforming single-family house at the subject property. This would, of course, be subject to any conditions that the board's professionals have imposed in their reports, which we agree with in full, and any conditions that the board may see fit to impose. The property in question is in the rural residential farmland preservation district. It's also in the flood hazard district, but none of the proposed improvements are in the flood hazard conservation district. All the improvements are in the RRFLP, or rural residential zone. There's also a conservation easement toward the rear of the property, and if that requires modification to any extent, we're happy to do that as well. And that conservation easement, of course, is dedicated to the township.
Mr. Toto, I think you mentioned the zone district. It's
Yes.
3A. R-3A.
It was 3A.
No, that's what we have on the paperwork.
Is that right? Doesn't it say formally 3A on that?
No, it says zone district R-3A.
Because it was,
Lot
it was
19.
initially approved under 3A as a single-family lot, but the township changed the zoning of the property from R3A to RRFLP.
No, it's on your application dated 9/29/21.
Sure, Mr. Vignolo, I know that, I do see that. I do know that the notice, of course, provides for RRFLP. So if I could amend the application orally at this time
No issue with that. If
to reflect that it's in the RRFLP and FHC zones.
Understood, and if
Sure.
you could just follow that up with a paper copy. of that.
Absolutely.
Perfect.
Yeah, will do. So my apologies, Mr. Chairman. But certainly our notice to the surrounding property owners and publication in the Home News and Tribune reflects that it's in the RR, FLP, and FHC zones. So as I was saying, just to clarify what the board chairman brought up, was the property was the subject of a minor subdivision by the planning board in 2003. Of course, the property was rezoned from R3A to rural residential, which requires 10 acres. The subject property is 5.79 acres, so it rendered the subject property non-conforming. The applicant actually lives next door to this property on lot 10.20. That's also, well, at the time it was not undersized, the time of the construction, but that property is approximately 3.5 acres. So at this point, Mr. Chairman, I do have two witnesses. I have Mr. Riley, the owner and applicant, and I have John DuPont, our planner. So I'd like to call Tom Riley at this point.
Yes, you may.
Thank you. Tom, if you would.
Good evening, everybody.
Mr. Riley, if you could raise your right hand for me, do you swear the testimony you're going to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
If you could state your name, spell your last name, and give us your address for the record, and if you could talk into the microphone, it would be spectacular.
My name is Thomas Riley, live at 228 Day Grove Road. And my last name spelled R-I-L-E-Y.
Tom, how long have you lived at 228 Day Grove?
We've lived there 21 years.
And the adjacent lot, the lot that is the subject of tonight's application is 226 Day Grove
Correct.
Road.
Yes,
And that lot is vacant.
yes,
And you sought approval for that lot before the planning board in 2003, and approval was granted.
it was granted in 2003.
And you, in fact, perfected the lot, creating lot 10.19, which is tonight's application, and your
Yes.
home on 10.20.
Yes, we did.
Why did you never seek to actually improve the lot or develop the lot?
I really didn't want to develop it because we did it just towards retirement. But the taxes now, I can't afford to keep paying the taxes on both lots and live there.
So essentially, you're looking for the board's approval to have this created as a single-family lot, even though it's undersized, and there's deficient lot width and lot frontage, so that you can sell the property.
Correct.
You're not yet under contract.
No,
Okay. You have a proposed buyer.
yes, I did.
Okay, fair enough. When the zoning change was first proposed, you may have received notice from the township. Did you receive any notice? And if you did, what did you do with
I
that
don't
notice?
even recall receiving, we subdivided before the 6-acre change, and then I don't recall the 10-acre, could have got the mail, you get the mail, I didn't even think it affected us.
No, I understand. But you're looking just to make things right tonight by asking the board for this relief. All right. And as far as any proposed home or the construction on the proposed lot, on lot 10.19, you're looking to comply with all other requirements. So that would include no construction in the FHC zone, correct?
Right.
The building height will comply.
Everything's, yes,
It'll have a 2-car garage,
right.
correct? The driveway width will comply with the ordinance.
Everything will comply.
Curb cut width will comply with the
Yes.
ordinance. You'll comply with shade tree requirements.
Whatever
Requirements there are in the
requirement
ordinance.
we need to do,
Okay. Any fencing would also comply?
yes.
Okay. All right, nothing further, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, real quick, did I hear correctly that you're not building anything, is that correct?
Correct.
So how could he guarantee the builder or whoever buys the lot is gonna comply with everything? Wouldn't they
So-
have to come before here?
No, so just like in 2003, Mr. Chairman, that approval building permit was subject to providing any number of things, including a plot plan, a drainage plan, architecturals to make sure it conforms with the neighborhood character, a floodplains delineation, a letter of interpretation from the DEP. Just in the same vein as 2003, we also seek to have those be conditions of approval, have the lot approved, but subject to building permit approval and all of those things that the board engineer and board planner would review, along with the zoning office.
Okay.
And of course, the building department.
Okay, any board members have any questions? Yes, Mr. Lupo.
Mr. Toto, I have a question for you.
Sure.
Can you hear me?
I can, yes, indeed.
Water, okay, you just elated to the individual builder coming, who Mr. Riley will have a commitment, who he has a commitment on the lot. Individual builds a house, per se. Mr. Riley's on one side and Mr. Lee is on the other side.
Correct.
Tell me, what's in the scheme of things? Is a culvert, a swale of some sort to divert water if individual builds a high house or a
Sure.
house? You can't tell a guy, hey, listen, I want you to go below grade. So he's gonna build whatever home he wants to build. I'm sure Mr. Riley doesn't want to get flooded out,
Absolutely.
and obviously Mr. Lee.
Or the neighbor to the east, absolutely not.
So what's the scheme of things?
So in the scheme of things, we would say that a drainage plan would have to be approved by the township engineer, the board engineer, Mark Razumowitz, and if it's not approved, no building permit is issued.
Okay.
So that would be, I would ask the board to impose that as a condition of approval to protect both Mr. Riley, the neighbor to the east of the property, and the neighborhood in general.
That's the concern, obviously.
Sure.
You're in a floodplain to begin with, a little bit. I know where the house is being built, it's not, but, you have some wetlands out there. So that's no problem.
Okay, no, thank you. So, no, we know stormwater management and drainage is important in Monroe and elsewhere, so, again, we would be subject to Mr. Razumowitz's review and approval.
Any other comments for Mr. Riley?
I'm not sure I understand what the designation.
Mr. Jaffe, please use the microphone. Thank you.
Not sure.
Is it on?
Flip it over, turn the switch, and the light will always stay on.
There you go.
It's easier to leave it on.
Do you hear me now?
Yes.
I'm not sure I understand what the designation rural residential refers to.
I don't know.
That's the zone of the property, which requires a minimum lot area, among other things, a minimum lot area of 10 acres, side yard setbacks of 50 feet. So it's a zone designation, just like the R3 zone is a zoning designation in Monroe Township. The Flood Hazard Conservation District, FHC, so rural residential, so it's RRFLP, Rural Residential Farmland Preservation District. That's what the district is. That's the zoning.
Now, is that preserved farmland?
No, I think that's, I don't want to say it's a misnomer, but it's just what the zone is called. There's no requirement to preserve farmland, although there is a conservation easement dedicated, a substantial conservation easement toward the rear of the property that's already dedicated to Monroe Township.
Mr.
Yeah.
Jaffe, if you're going to continue to speak, you need to push the button when you're speaking because
Okay.
the public on YouTube needs to hear also, okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions from any board members? Seeing there's none, please proceed with your plan.
Sure, at this point, I'd like to call our professional planner, John Dupont. John, if you would, you're good. Thank you. Want me to hold it out? I'm going to have to act as a bit of an easel here tonight.
There's nothing you can't do, we know.
I think the board has this.
Mr. Dupont,
Packet.
if you could raise your right hand, do you swear the testimony you're going to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
If you could state your name, spell your last name, and give us your professional address, please.
My name is John P. DuPont, D-U-P-O-N-T, from JPD Engineering, 756 Jackson Road, Stewartsville, New Jersey.
John, advise the board, if you would, what you did to prepare for tonight's hearing and give the board the benefit of your planning testimony, if you would.
Absolutely. So, as the board's heard already, we're talking about a site in the
Excuse me,
RR
Mr. Toto, I think we need to qualify him
Oh, I'm
first.
sorry.
Oh,
I guess the easel got in the way, huh?
I am aware of Mr. DuPont's credentials, but I think everybody else here would love to hear him.
And that is a terrific easel. So I am a licensed professional planner in the state of New Jersey. I've been for about 20 years. I served as the Borough of Carteret planner for about the last 20 years. I've been through state boards throughout the state. I'm planning testimony like this, and I've been in front of Mr. Vignello several times.
Very
was a
good.
case in
We-
John-
We will accept his
Thank you.
credentials as a professional.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Please continue.
Okay, so as we talk, this lot is in the RRFLP zone. It is lot 10.19, and it's approximately 5.791 acres. So this site was a part of a previous application in 2003. The original property was 9.285 acres, and it was subdivided into two parcels. One parcel, 10.20, 3.5 acres, a single-family home was constructed. The other lot, 10.19, was left vacant. Since that time, the township has modified the zoning requirements for the area, and it's now required to have 10-acre lot areas. This property is, again, 5.79. Now, the township has, when they revised the zone, they put a grandfather clause in the ordinance. If the lots were 6.0 acres in this area, they were grandfathered in, we wouldn't be here tonight, it would have got all approvals, but it is 0.2 of an acre short. That's why we're here. So it's important to note that we're not currently proposing any construction. We're simply looking at obtaining the necessary relief to construct a house, a single-family home in the future. So lot area requirement currently is 10 acres. We have 5.79. Lot frontage, 400 feet required. We have 200 feet. And lot width, again, 400 required, and we have 200. I read your staff's professional review letters, completely agree with their comments. Your planner was right on point with what relief is needed with respect to the MLUL, and I think it's a C1 hardship. So if we look at a C1 hardship in a lot area case like this, the Dalmeyer versus Lacey Township Board of Adjustment, in that case, the court surmised that the law requires the applicant to do 5 steps, basically. Step 1 is we have to address both the positive and negative criteria. Positive criteria, we are advancing several purposes of the MLUL. I won't bore you with reading them, but I will tell you the letters. So we believe clearly purpose A, C, E, G, and L, we're advancing. We are developing this underutilized piece of property. We're going to improve the appearance with a new single-family home. We're going to generate additional income for the township. And best, we are proposing a residential lot of permitted use in the zone. We've also reviewed your 2020 master plan, your reexamination. I think we hit several goals in that master plan. Goal 1, to protect and enhance the residential character of the township. I think we meet that. Goal 2, to avoid conflicting uses in zones. And 3, to preserve and protect the existing viable residential neighborhoods by promoting infill development within the framework of an existing residential zone. So I think that's clearly 3 goals we're hitting in your master plan. As far as the negative criteria, we know that relief cannot be granted unless it is granted without substantial detriment to the public good, unless it will not substantially impair the intent and purpose of the zone plan. In my opinion, the granting of the request can be done without any detriment to the public good. We are proposing a residential use, which is permitted. We are meeting all the light, air, and open space requirements of your zone, basically of a fully conforming zone. We're not looking for any setback relief. Our lot was part of a previous application, and we're only here because we're short 0.2 acres in area. And we will certainly not cause any substantial impairment to the intent or purpose of either the zone plan or the ordinance. The second step in our proof that we have to make, we have to demonstrate that efforts have been made to bring the property into conformity with the zoning ordinance by attempting to either acquire adjacent property or sell our property to adjacent owner. I think our attorney has provided letters to the board doing just that. The next step is the applicant will need to provide plans of the described home and provide compliance with building codes and setbacks. So you've heard testimony tonight that we agree as a condition of approval that we'll meet all the building requirements, all the setback requirements. So I think we meet that condition. The applicant must also demonstrate that the use and all the setbacks are going to be compliant. We've done that tonight, and we'll agree to a condition. And the fifth step is that the applicant must demonstrate that the proposed use does not violate any traditional zoning purposes, such as light, air, and open space. We are honoring all the setbacks. Therefore, we're not reducing any of the light, air, and open space of our project or adjacent properties. So we feel we're clearly hitting that. Now, I'd like to look at the exhibit. We made an exhibit. If I can get up there, I'm going to speak a little. Should I speak a little louder, Mr. Chairman, or should I bring the microphone with me?
Yeah, we don't have the call list. I guess when you want to speak, bend over to the mic. We're gonna check your agility tonight.
I can do that.
Make sure you're physically fit.
Mr. Dupont, is that a copy of the plan that was submitted in connection with the application?
Yes.
Okay, then we don't need to mark that. You got it.
I'm gonna try to stay out of the way if I can. But what you're seeing there is, again, as Mr. Vignola just said, this is an exact copy of the submitted plan. Shows the 2 lots. It does show a proposed residential dwelling on that lot. Just for graphical purposes, just kind of show you what a location area could be. I want to really flip to the next sheet. This is what I want to hit for planning testimony. We created an exhibit that was not submitted. Just grab and mark this.
We could mark that as Exhibit A1. We'd also add the date, which is the 26th of April, 4/26/2022, and the application number, which is BA 5211-21. Thanks.
Thank you. So basically what we did, we wanted to create an exhibit to get a feel for the area. So we have looked at all the properties within 200 feet of the subject property, and then all the properties within 300 feet of our property. So when we look at within 200 feet of our property, there are 12 existing properties there now. Of those 12, 9 are under 6 acres. That's 75% of lots, under 6 acres. 11 are under 10 acres. So it's a 10-acre zone. 92% of your lots are under 10 acres. 1 property conforms to the lot area. If we expand it and we go to 300 feet from the property, we now reach 14 existing lots. 9 of those properties are under 6 acres, 65%. 12 are under 10 acres. 85% of those lots are under 10 acres, and only 2 conform to lot area. So we just wanted to bring that to attention. I think we've made the proofs, but really we're 0.2 acres aside from even being grandfathered, and we feel that that's a good illustration of we're not going to impact your zone plan or your zone ordinance. We're very consistent with all the properties around us. And I just have simply a conclusion. So just in conclusion, I feel the board can grant the approval of the application based on the fact that the benefits of granting the variances requested substantially outweigh the detriments. This project will not have any detriment to the public good. The purposes of the MLUL are advanced. It will not have any detriment to the public good. There'll be no deviation from the intent or purpose of the zone plan or the zoning ordinance, and they will not be significantly impaired. I think the request is reasonable. I think the applicant made a modification tonight to eliminate one of the bulk variances. I think you have a good application there that I think meets the intent.
Thank you, John. Mr. Chairman, nothing further.
Anyone from the board have any questions for the planner?
Can I step in?
Yes, counsel, you may step in.
Awesome. Mr. Chairman, as you may have noticed, our board planner and our board engineer are both unfortunately not able to be with us this evening. I've spoken with both of them, and I've indicated that I can ask what I believe are the relevant inquiries from their reports, but they are also both available by phone should we need them. And with respect to Mr. Razumowicz's report, I believe the applicant's already indicated that they will submit all the relevant information prior to building permit.
Correct.
And the one open item is sidewalk and curb construction or a contribution in lieu of. I believe that the applicant has indicated they would provide a contribution in lieu of the construction.
Correct.
Okay, perfect. And then with respect to Ms. Apte's report, there was a question for confirmation that the applicant is not making any changes to the conservation easement. Is that correct?
Unless the township required something in that regard.
Exactly, but in and of the applicant's proposal, there's no change to the
No
conservation
change at all,
easement itself.
Mr. Vignola.
Okay.
no.
Mr. Chairman, I don't believe that there are any other questions from the board's professionals.
Thank you. Mr. Toto, any other witnesses?
Nothing further, Mr. LaFleur.
Once again, any questions from any board members? You just heard from our professionals, or on behalf of our professionals. Are there any questions with regards to that? Okay, board members? Going to the public. Relax, I got it. We're looking forward. Anyone in the public wishing to be heard on this application and this application only, please come forth. come forward. Can I ask you just to take a seat back and let the gentleman get up there, please? Come on, right here. Come on up. Don't worry about it.
Make room.
Plenty of room.
Take the mask off.
That's
so
all
that
right.
You could see that there's a person behind the.
And a smile, too. That's good.
And if you could state your name and spell your last name for
Yes.
the record, please.
Do I need to press any button or anything, or I'm coming through loud and clear? Okay, great. Good evening, everyone. My name is Ronald Lee, spelled L-E-E.
And your address, sir?
I am at 224 Dye Grove Road, Monroe. I have no credentials as Mr. DeFont and Esquire Toto have, except for the
Lee,
fact.
if you're going to be making comments, if I could just swear you in so that we can confirm the veracity of anything you might say.
Most
So if you-
certainly.
Thank you. Do you swear the testimony you're going to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you, sir.
So as I was saying, I have no credentials as the two previous professionals, Esquire Toto and professional engineer. However, I am referred to as the neighbor to the east, as Mr. Esquire Toto has referred to me as. My wife, Kai-Ying Lee, spelled capital K, lowercase a, space, capital Y-I-N-G, same last name spelling, have been homeowners at this address known as Block 19, Lot 10.16, since 1993. Since Esquire Toto felt it was necessary to establish Mr. Riley's residency in the 71, where I resided at 31 Fifth Avenue, attended Monroe School number 4, which is now known as Mill Lake School, Monroe Township School number 3, which is now known as Woodland School. Graduated 1980 from the middle school / high school, which was grades, I think it was 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and have been a resident where I've raised my family, and my children have also gone to this school system. So the reason the property that we're at is the property that is adjacent to the vacant lot for which this evening's application bulk variance has come before the board. And I wish to go on public record stating that I oppose the granting of this variance application for this non-conforming lot. Any disruption or disturbance of this already flood-prone area, which contains wetland conservation zones, would put me and my family in a true hardship position. Not C1, not whatever, a true hardship position. This area is already low-lying and saturated and prone to frequent flooding and puddling. I have some photographs which I would like to submit to the board showing the flooding and puddling that occurs after rain. May I submit these
You may. We're gonna
photographs?
if you could mark the back of them if you have a pen,
Yes.
and we'll mark them as 01 and 02 or
All right, I
down the
have
line.
about 12, so I will do 01. Where would you like these to start?
Mr. Chairman.
Well, we're going to start at the end, and we'll pass it around, and we're going to have council have an opportunity to view them.
Sure.
Yeah, let everyone see them.
Sure.
Mr. Lee, for the record, the photos depict what?
Yes, I will describe the what the photos depict as they're being passed around. So 01 and 02, which I am going to hand off now, depict my property after a rain, showing the puddling and the streaming of water that is running along the property. The Jeep in the picture looks like it's enjoying the water, but it does, but in reality, I don't enjoy the water.
And Mr. Lee, who took those photos?
They are my photographs.
They were taken by you or at your direction?
They were taken by me.
On what date?
I do not have an exact date, sir.
Approximately when?
I will say perhaps 2 years ago.
Okay.
The pictures that I will now mark as 03 and 04.
If I may, with regard to the first two, do we know if they were taken at the same time, the same rain event, storm event?
I'll let the board answer that question.
No.
So you would need to answer
I
that,
need you to
Mr. Lee,
answer
because
that.
you're the one.
It is an affirmative, yes.
Okay.
So these are
The
the same.
Jeep is parked in the exact same
Okay.
spot.
Okay.
The hibiscus are in bloom still. So the pictures 03 and 04, which I will now submit, are taken from my driveway, showing puddling that is on the adjacent property. One is showing a east to west picture diagram, and the other one shows a view where it will show the neighbor's home across the street.
And Mr. Lee, when were these photos taken? Same time frame?
These would have been taken about 2 weeks ago.
Okay, thank you.
You'll notice the sunny skies, so the rain event had occurred previously 3 to 4 days, in my estimation.
But we have no exact date on these photos, so we really can't
Right.
be sure about that. Okay, thank you.
The pictures I will now mark as 05
5.
and 06. Also show puddling and continued hydric conditions. On the vacant lot property, for which the application is being submitted this evening. You will also see the backyard building structure and pool area of Mr. Riley in one of the photographs.
Mr. Lee, 0506, when were those photos taken?
Same date, same as the
0304?
0304.
Thank you.
Same sunny skies. Trees are budding.
Mr. Lee, before you go further,
Yes.
these 003 and 4, do you have any pictures of those when you took 01 and 02?
No.
In other words, the first two pictures you took, did you take these two locations on the same
I
day
did
or a
not.
different day?
I did not. 01, 02 were taking on different days than the rest of these.
And would you recall, was there any unpredicted weather? Like I know recently, in past several years, we've had some storms, like they call them the 100-year storms. And when all the clouds and everything line up together, we get tremendous flooding. Because even in the Mill Lake section where you used to live, we got flooded there
Correct.
again.
I'm
So
aware of that.
I'm just curious if these pictures were taken under those circumstances that aren't on a daily occurrence or under a normal rain condition.
I would say it was more of a not a usual occurrence.
So a little abnormal occurrence.
I've dated up to numbered up to 05,
You have, sir, you'd be picking up at 0708.
07, 08. 07, 08 show my backyard. It has a portion of my fencing and another puddle, which 07 shows the fencing. 08 and 09 just show close-ups of the same puddle.
And is this the same 2-week-ago day that you took?
Same 2 week ago day.
Got it.
Same blue sky, same budding trees.
Mr. Jaffe, once they are all passed down, I'm going to ask you to bring the photos to council. Not yet, once they all come down so we can get them all at one time.
07, 08, 09, 010.
Yep. Yes, sir.
010 is a completely different date. I don't recall the date it was taken. However, it is that same puddle that is shown on 07, 08, 09. Different day. It's a cloudy condition. It is somewhat of a rainy day as I took this one through my screen door.
And what was 09?
09?
Oh,
It's a close-up, I believe.
Okay. Oh, so it's
Closer
09
close-up.
Came together, got it.
Yes,
Thank you.
a closer
I
close-up.
missed that. My apologies.
Nope. So this area is already low-lying and saturated and prone to flooding and puddling, as the pictures show. The construction of a 2.5-story, 3 to 4 bedroom, 2-car garage with driveway and raised septic system would severely alter the grade and elevation, as was indicated, suggested by the board in earlier questioning.
I don't think it was a suggestion, it was a question.
Questioned.
We don't suggest what takes place, we ask questions.
I retract that as
Thank you.
mentioned. The construction of that would severely alter the grade and elevation that would impact my home, my property, along with the surrounding wetland conservation zones with excessive amounts of runoff, causing additional flood events and puddling. I'll let everybody look at the pictures.
Mr. LaFatta, may I ask Mr. Lee any questions at this
I
point?
think you're gonna need to direct your question to me and I'll relay it.
That's
to him.
fine. I'm wondering if Mr. Lee's undertaken any measures to mitigate what he believes is a drainage problem on the property.
Mr. Lee, have you taken any mitigation in behalf of solving any drainage problems?
I certainly have. Shop vac, dry vac. I've also had some grading done over the years.
Has any drainage work been performed or anything of that nature, or to ease the flooding on your property? Or
Other than bringing in additional topsoil and regrading, just to keep the water from going into my basement all the time. I still run 2 sump pumps to keep some heavy rain out of my garage and basement.
And in Mr. Lee's experience, how does the water flow onto his property? From what direction, predominantly?
Water taking the path of least resistance, most of the times from high elevation to low elevation.
so would the property adjacent to you be higher than yours?
In between, we have a sort of a narrow berm, not a berm, swale.
Mm-hmm. So is that capable of handling the water and then channeling it elsewhere?
Not as the 01 and 02 show, no.
Well, isn't 01 and 02 the front of your home?
Yes.
Yeah.
If I just may continue at this point.
Sure, go ahead.
The application and the drawing shown, I think the original one that was submitted, when I took a look at it up at the zoning board office, it did not show a pond, which is on the vacant property, at the back of the vacant property. Also, I could not see clearly if it showed any of the 2, not 1, but 2 brook tributaries that run through both the properties, my property and the adjacent property. I do have a GIS map that shows the location of the pond and the 2 tributaries that run through the properties, which I would also like to mark and submit.
And from whom are those? I'm going to object.
It's from the New Jersey maps, the ARC GIS.
No, I'm going to object to that. We've already stated on the record that we're absolutely going to delineate the floodplains and delineate the wetlands before the issuance of any permit. And if you don't have a professional that's going to introduce that, Mr. Lee, I'm objecting to the admission of that document.
It's your call on the objection, but the objection is...
I'm going to have to, based on legal matters, I'm going to have to agree with counsel.
Okay.
You're bringing up professional things. You're not a professional. You don't have a professional here. Anyone can take anything off the internet. And so therefore, we have to use precaution here. And under advice from counsel, we're not gonna accept that as evidence.
That's
You can speak,
sure.
but
So,
we're not gonna
in
accept.
my visual, I visually, I understand, there are two brooks tributaries that run through the property, and there is a pond in the back vacant lot, without submitting this.
Mr. LaFatta, I would also state this, I'm happy to meet with Mr. Lee, along with the board engineer on site to see what perhaps additional mitigation might be suitable for the site. I just don't know exactly the nature of the issue out there. I mean, I know Mr. Lee is testifying that there are flooding problems. Despite not knowing the dates of those pictures, we know we've had some close to catastrophic rainfalls over the last few years that I don't think preclude further development. Again, I'm happy to meet with, despite his objections, I'm happy to meet with Mr. Lee to see what additional measures we could take to perhaps create a swale or drainage features that might help his situation out as well, even though we're not obligated to do so, again, subject to the board engineer's approval.
Okay. Mr. Lee, are you in
Well,
agreement with that?
as a comment to that, it doesn't necessarily have to be a 100-year flood event, which we've probably had a number of them in the last decade. I am open to further discussion. I also wish to point out that on the original submitted document map, it shows a 2-decade-old 100-year flood data from 2002, which a lot has happened in the last 2 decades, 20 years. Global warming, sea level rise, these were probably not common household terms, not to mention our high water table, which continues to be high out in that area. I also did not see any recent or past hydrological studies with showing data for soil logs, permeability tests to determine the hydric conditions before.
Well, Mr. Lee, you do know they're here for a subdivision? I'm sorry.
Variances.
A variance
Undersized lot.
for an undersized lot. So there is no building taking place at this point. So anyone, if this application should be approved, would need to meet all this criteria where you're referring to flooding, this, that. They're gonna have to come before this board.
No, I think
For topographical, I mean, for flooding and stuff?
No, I think what they've requested is the ability to satisfy the engineer with respect to those items, just like anybody else who was going to build on any lot. So essentially, what you're saying is that you're allowing a lot that doesn't meet the width, frontage, and area requirements to be built upon, but they would then be like any other property owner. If this was a conforming lot, they would need to meet all those requirements, and they're going to meet those requirements at the time of building permit by satisfying the professionals of the township.
Okay, I correct myself.
Which would include a plot plan and would include soil logs as well. For permeability.
So please continue.
Yes, thank you. So also according to the drawing, there is a, I'll call it a dotted rectangular delineation where the proposed house structure that is not being approved at this time may be located. And part of that concern is that given that the fact that the actual footprint of the home may be moved around, I guess it would be up for further review in the future before construction permits are issued. Is that correct?
Mr. Lee, we would definitely agree that it would comply with the setbacks. So we're actually we're not going 40 feet there, okay? That would be at least 50 feet from the common lot line.
Correct.
It would not be any closer than the 158-foot setback at this point, even though only 75 feet is required. So we'd have to be within those constraints.
Sure. Within those constraints, that would also require that the surrounding grade be adjusted. The septic that is placed would have to be appropriately placed, and the driveway, which is constructed, would have to be appropriately placed.
Of course, yes.
Of course.
Absolutely.
Yes. Okay, so therefore, again, I am open to further discussions. I do ask the board to, in closing, that I ask the zoning board to remember the reasons and to honor the decision that it made initially for the RRFLP zoning in that area. I also ask the zoning board to consider the environmental impact of development in near wetland and sensitive conservation areas. I also ask the zoning board to consider the hardship that approval may cause to me, my family, and my property. Thank you.
Mr. Toto, do you have any questions with regard to the photos?
Nothing further on the
No,
photos.
other than the one objection, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Go ahead, Mr. Lupo.
Mr. Lee, I
Lee,
have a question for you. That, on photo number 10, 10, is that the back of your property? I see it's like a white PVC fencing that you took. Is that the back of your property?
Yes, it is.
Okay, is that a pond or is that just rainwater from an accumulation of a storm or?
It is the same puddle that is shown on.
So it's not a pond, it's just accumulation?
That's the accumulation.
Okay. You got a grading issue, because water will run to the lowest point. So if that back of that property was graded properly, you would never see that. You can divert that back to the woods. And the applicant has told you repeatedly that before any home is ever built on that property, first of all, you don't know what size it is. He may just build a ranch. You've got it a 2-story mega house. That they're gonna conform with every engineering spec possible, because you gotta take into consideration, you're worrying about getting flood. What about the Rileys alongside of you? I think as the road goes down, I think they're a little lower than you are. So whatever he's doing, whatever that homeowner will build will flood out the Rileys worse than you. And I don't think the Rileys want to sell to somebody and get flooded out. But the applicant has stipulated your concern, understands your concern, and is going to, before anything is built, these people have to come before us, and engineering of all sorts is going to be taken into effect. And I think, to be honest with you, it'll probably help your water problem, because it will be diverted back to the woods in a form of, I'm not an engineer, it might be a culvert or a swale of some sort. But they're not going to let somebody build a house on there and flood both people out, because it would flood the Rileys out also. I just wanted to make that clear, because I do have a little construction background, and it's very simple. Water will collect to the lowest point. Your backyard is not properly graded. Now, I understand the cost of dirt and excavation, but it's not properly graded. If it was, hey, if you're up here and you grade down to, you're never gonna get any water. But as you can see, there's a low point there, so water's gonna collect to the low point. If a property is graded properly, which this one will be, when the homeowner comes on board, because he's gonna have to come before us.
No, he will not. He doesn't need to come
When he
before
builds
you.
the house, he's gotta come before us, doesn't he?
No, before
He
the
does not.
engineer.
He has to satisfy the township's engineering and building department,
It's even better, he's gotta go to the engineer
which
before.
is where you would go anyway. I
Right.
mean,
Yeah.
If they brought a plot plan in today, Mr. Razumowitz would have reviewed that. He would have provided you with his opinion regarding the sufficiency of that to satisfy all the issues that are, encompassed by providing that plan. It's just going to happen now as a condition prior to the building of the
Right.
site.
Do you understand that?
Thank you for the,
We don't wanna flood you out, we don't wanna flood the Rileys out.
just for the record, that puddle is on the Riley's property, on that vacant lot, not my property.
Okay,
My statement of the 2.5-story mega home, which I described, is because I saw that on the plan drawing, stated as a 2.5-story, 35-foot high structure. And in my area, if we're gonna start talking about, comparables, there has not been a small home like that built in quite a while. If I expand out the circle to Cara Homes, President Estates, We'll even increase the square footage somewhat there.
Are there any other questions from the board? Mr.
Oh, I would like to say one more
Go
thing. I know I said in closing,
That's
but I
okay.
would like to in close and close again.
Go right ahead.
As one of the diagrams that was not previously submitted, that was submitted for approval this evening, expanding the area of, the size lots and stuff like that. If I were to expand out 100 miles, we would also have New Jersey as being one of the most densely populated residential areas.
Okay, thank you for that. Mr. Lee, I have to give two things. Number one, those photos are now being submitted for evidence, so we're going to need to retain those. So I'm going to need all of those up here, please. And also, would you be so kind to potentially tell me your lot size of where you currently live?
I am on I believe it's 24 acres.
Okay. Is that also the under the FHC also?
The home was constructed back in the 1990s when it was R3. I believe that would be the zoning R3.
It is in the rural residential.
So it's an R-R3?
No, it currently is in RR-FLP, rural residential farmland preservation.
And FHC also, or?
I don't see it as FHC on this, although the surveyor may not have undertaken that step to determine whether the FHC applied, but he has it as the entire zone, so I'd have to say only rural residential and not FHC.
And what was the size of this lot that they're divvying, that they're subdividing? The size of the lot
subject
that's here
for
before tonight?
application is 5.79.
Okay. Any other questions from the board? Anyone? Okay, Mr. Lee, are you done?
I am.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else from the public wishing to be heard? Please come forth.
If you
George Gunkelman, 5 Kelly Court, Monroe. I have a question, not a comment.
Sure.
My question is the site serviced by water and sewer? I got the impression from the previous, or the neighboring property that it's on septic. And I don't know if any studies have been done to identify if the space available on the undersized lot will be adequate to meet the new standards for septic systems. They're constantly being upgraded, even though 20 years ago they might have been able to do things there. Maybe some of the new standards don't. And if there's not municipal water at the site, then they would have to require a well, reduce lot size that combine septic and wells sometimes have problems.
Well, from what I've seen on the application, it is going to require a septic and well water.
Correct.
Am I right?
Absolutely.
Reading the application?
Correct. And our understanding that it will support that, Mr. Gunkelman, and of course, Mr. Razumowitz has to ensure that, along with the County Health Department.
Have studies been done, or is it just your opinion?
It's not my opinion, it's an opinion of individuals we've spoken to. It's not coming from me, although it's technically hearsay because they're not here this evening. But our understanding, certainly it's subject to approval of the septic and a well, otherwise we will not get a building permit.
Right, but you're asking them to approve an undersized lot, not knowing if that's going to be compatible with those two things.
We have confidence that it will be compatible.
But no studies have been
No,
done.
you're
No
correct.
perk tests have been done.
No, you're correct.
We don't know how deep you would have to go for a well.
We do not. We
Okay,
do not.
thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Toto, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
If we can't achieve a septic, that means there's no building on the lot. Is that
Correct.
correct?
Correct. That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that if it can't be achieved, nothing can be built on the lot other than a septic?
Well, the well If the wetlands comes back or the floodplains
And
delineation
if
is
I'm not
problematic.
mistaken, looking at Mr. Razamovich's indication, does it indicate that? I didn't,
No, but Mr. Rasimowitz certainly wants those items to be resolved before building permits are issued.
okay.
Yes,
So if we can accomplish a well and a septic system, that means it would be suitable to put a home.
correct, yes.
If those can't be accomplished, then there'll be no home regardless of what takes
That's correct.
place. Okay.
Unless their septic, sewer and water came down the road anytime soon, but no, we're not expecting that.
I see you put a response form in here from the Rileys. You requested, I guess, from neighbors to purchase
establish the
additional
Correct.
property, or for someone to purchase this piece
Yes.
of property to add to theirs. And for the record, it says here that both of those items were declined.
They were indeed, yes.
Okay. Is there anyone else in the public wishing to be heard? Please come forward. Mr. Lee? No, hold on. We're going to take that lady first.
Ladies and gentlemen, I wasn't going to speak
If you could,
because I am a neighbor across the street from the Rileys. My name is Barbara Lonzak.
and your address, Ms. Lonzak.
221 Dye Grove Road.
And if you could spell your last name just for the record, please.
Lonczak.
Thank you. Are you going to make comments or are you going to ask questions?
I'm going to make comments.
Okay, if I could just swear you in real quick.
Surely.
Do you swear the testimony you're going to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
The Rileys had this property for quite some time, and my brother actually was one individual thinking of purchasing it. It's not the question of is it big enough, it's what type of house you're going to put on it. At 221 Dye Grove Road, there was a house built next to me, a mega mansion. A mega mansion that was approved by the township. Not only did they approve it, the builder decided to build it closer to us than the creek that was on the other side where it was supposed to go. The gentleman that was speaking before who had knowledge of construction, I have to tell you, the township doesn't keep an eye. And on behalf of the Lees, the size of the house is gonna matter. They have been building mega mansions. Our side of the road, is higher than the other side. Our homes built in the 80s and 90s were built down into the ground. Houses today are being built completely above ground. The house next to me, we thought it was the garage going in. It was the foundation of the home. By the time we realized what was going on, we realized they moved it, but we're thinking it's not gonna be a problem. By the time they brought the dirt in to fill around that basement, we had water flowing, dirty clay water flowing into our yard. When we went to the township engineer, we were told we can either sue the builder or the township. Unlike anyone else in this room, we don't have money to do that. We, as a community, just ask the board, the engineers, just to keep an eye, because by the time we realize there's a problem, it is too late, and we don't have the money to sue. The Rileys have the right to sell the property because it was zoned 3 acres, but as part of I'm asking you in the future, whoever purchases this property, to be aware of the fact that grading has nothing to do with it. The fact is, our side is slightly higher to that side. The water that goes into those properties filter ultimately into one of the rivers in New Jersey. Please take a map out and look. It is a difficult area to build in. So I wasn't going to speak only because they have looked to sell the home or the property for quite some time. I know individuals who are looking at it. I'm looking at you for the future. Whoever purchases this property, please be aware that the requirements today for septic, for building a home completely out of the ground, is not going to help the next neighbor who has to bring feet of dirt in to battle against the water that comes in. We have been flooded for years in our yard. And we had to go through lots of construction on our side to try to deviate the water. So not to, I mean, you look at the cost of construction of your own, you know, water flow away from your property versus suing someone. Like, which way do you go? So I just ask you in the future, when you're looking at homes being built in that area, it is a very low area. Coming down Bryanville Road in the beginning, it is swampland. So just keep in mind for future building in that area, it is not like the farmlands that you have major construction going in. It is small individual homes that were built in the 80s and 90s whose basements are so sunk into the ground that you have to have 2 sump pumps going all the time. So that's what I wanted to mention. Okay? Thank you so much for the time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the public wishing to be heard? Should we?
He's allowed to come back if he wants to.
Okay, come forward, Mr. Lee. Considering it's your second time, we're gonna curtail some of your information because you gave most of your testimony already. So,
Yes, this is just in response to the proposal to purchase land or sell land, letter received via certified return receipt registered from Esquire Toto. The letter didn't give me and my wife much of a choice in our response, in that it was a mere checklist of choices, 2 of which were inappropriate, or not inappropriate, would have created hardship for me. The one statement, I am interested in selling a portion of my lot to Thomas Riley, that would have put me in a hardship situation. I would have been homeless. Second one, I am interested in purchasing Thomas Riley's property. As the letter that was sent along with it stated, it would be to purchase my client's lot at fair market value, which in this instance means a building lot price as if the variance had been granted. Variance has not been granted. Had it been, purchasing this would also put me at a hardship, a financial hardship. Therefore, the only 2 choices I could have possibly checked off, honestly, was I am not interested in selling a portion of my property to Thomas Riley, and the 4th choice, I am not interested in purchasing Thomas Riley's property.
And just for the record, Mr. Lee, so you understand why that letter was sent to you, in order for an applicant who is seeking to develop an undersized lot to come before a board and demonstrate that they have a hardship, they are required to send letters to the adjoining property owner offering to purchase their a portion of their property or their property so they can make their property conforming or less non-conforming. And they also are required to offer to sell their property to the adjoining property owner. But the New Jersey courts have determined that the price that they are required to offer to sell that property for is the fair market value, assuming the variance relief they're seeking has been granted. So what they have sent you is what they were required to do under New Jersey law in order to establish the proofs for their case. Okay?
Thank you for the clarification.
No problem.
Nothing further. Thank you.
thank you. Anyone else in the public wishing to be heard on this application? Seeing there's none, I need a motion to close the public portion.
Make a motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Tori, second. All in favor of closing the public portion?
Aye.
Before this goes to vote, Mr. Toto, do you have anything to say with respect to the residents that came up or anything of that nature?
Well, like
or
I
reference
said-
to the photos that was submitted?
Well, we would endeavor to, like I think Board Member Lupo mentioned, that I think we're going to resolve at least some of the issues that may exist out there, although we don't know that there are issues. I know there's been some catastrophic storms. Again, this is a single-family lot. We're going to, I think the water flows towards the woods, and that's going to be the idea. And with Mr. Razamowitz's approval and perhaps assistance, we'll design a drainage plan that will accommodate that, and hopefully will relieve some of the issues that these homeowners are experiencing. I do think Mr. DuPont, in his testimony, satisfied our burden of proving the bulk variance relief, both the positive and negative criteria, and for that reason, I respectfully request the board to grant the relief that we
Okay,
requested.
are you willing to make part of the condition that you will meet with Mr. Lee
Sure.
and the township engineer to come to something that would be suffice for both, or?
Well, I'm wary of a stipulation that has to be to Mr. Lee's satisfaction, but certainly would act with him in good faith to determine whether or not,
Okay.
with Mr. Razumowitz's help, whether there are solutions that we can proceed with.
Okay, so basically, if Mr. Razumowicz can satisfy Mr. Lee's appetite for potential drainage issues, if this should move forward, are you okay with that?
I'm okay with
But
that.
having Mr. Lee part of that conversation?
Sure, to the extent that it's reasonable and we can help mitigate any of his issues. I'm not saying resolve, but mitigate, absolutely, yes.
Okay. Any other questions from the board? Okay, board members, we have an application in front of us. Everyone heard all the testimony. We have pictures for evidence from a neighbor. We have all the photos from the applicant. I need a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve this application under the stipulation that this particular property adheres to our professionals' requirements. And more so, engineering with water-related issues.
Okay? Is there a second to that motion? Mr. Jaffe, second. Madam Secretary, roll call, please.
Ms. Damiani?
Yes.
Mr. Lupo?
Yes.
Mr. Masters?
Yes.
Ms. Caratori?
Yes.
Mr. Tanzi?
Yes.
Mr. Jaffe?
Yes.
Chairman LaFata?
Yes.
Great, thank you for your time this evening, we appreciate it. We'll see you soon.
Good night.
Okay, board members, we have to memorialize application BA 5215-22 Shabbat Lubavitch Jewish Center. Do I have a motion to memorialize?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, board members, we have our second application, BA 5213-21 Royal Real Estate Holding LLC. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Abstain.
Mr. Tanzi abstain. Okay. Do we,
Or do you want the exhibit?
No, you take it.
do we have any discussion items to be discussed? No? No?
Financial disclosure?
Done.
Good, okay.
Everyone did their financial disclosure online?
Fine.
Good. Okay, we're gonna open this portion to the public. Anyone in the public wishing to be heard, please come forth, state your name, get it on the record. Seeing there's none, I need a motion to close the public portion. Do we have?
So
Ms.
moved.
Katori, we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Tanzi, second. All in favor of closing public portion?
Aye.
Aye.
Do we have any correspondences?
Nope.
None. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Do we have a second? All in favor?